For 60 years, the Glenn Jones name has been recognized for integrity and honesty.
And the Jones Auto Center's in Wickenburg.
Jones Ford Verde Valley.
Take a nice country drive out to Buckeye.
When you're talking about Arizona's best, you're talking about the Jones Auto Group. It's quick, fast, strong.
I want to invite you to visit our new facility in Casa Grande and enjoy our country-style way of doing business. We're the Joneses.
Okay, ready? Hi, everyone, and welcome in to the Sun Devil Source live podcast from the RAC Scottsdale, presented by Jones Auto Centers. We have full slate for you all today. These two were in Waco at that Baylor game, so some extensive analysis on that real nail-biter of a game down in Texas. I unfortunately was not there. I was watching from the comfort of my own home, which is something I very rarely get to do anymore, but it was kind of a nice view, just to be able to sit back and watch the game. So analysis from that, and then as always, a first look at ASU's upcoming matchup this Friday, some Friday Night Lights against TCU. TCU is newly ranked. They're number 24 in this week's AP poll. So we'll have a first look at that. And then, of course, on Thursday, the extensive analysis and extensive, really deep dive into that matchup. Before we get into anything, news, analysis, anything, we're very excited to announce that Kenny Dillingham will be joining us live from RAC Scottsdale here next Monday ahead of ASU's bye week. This, of course, would not be possible without all of our sponsors, RAC Scottsdale, Jones Auto Centers, El Bandito, Yankee Tequila, DrinkOnTheSly.com, Devil's Liquor, and Devil's Vodka. So, Chris, do you want to talk about a little bit more about Kenny Dillingham's appearance and what that's going to look like, and then, of course, our sponsors as well?
Super exciting, right? Our first guest on our live podcast is going to be ASU's head football coach. We introduced this idea to our members on the sanctuary a week or so ago, and we've had a lot of people RSVP. I think we should have a pretty full place here at RAC Scottsdale. Excited about that. He'll be coming on around 6 o'clock. We're giving a raffle for a VIP suite that people are going to be able to hang out and watch it with a bunch of food and beverages, including from our sponsors, DrinkOnTheSly.com, Devil's Vodka, El Bandito Tequila, El Bandito Yankee Tequila. People will be able to win a gift box that will have bottles of our sponsors' products, and pretty exciting. They'll all be here. There's drinks at the bar that people will be able to get that are mixed exclusively with our sponsors' beverages. People will be able to get a photo probably with Kenny Dillingham, say hello, watch us all interact. So Jones Auto Centers, Jones Ford, and of course the other sponsors that we mentioned in RAC Scottsdale wouldn't be possible without all of them. And we're super excited to be able to have that. It'll be probably about a half-hour conversation with Dillingham on a variety of subjects, catch up on where the team is at through 5 weeks. That's their bye week, so it's a good time to unpack kind of where they're at, self-scouting as they go into their first bye of the season. And this is a matchup that they have against number 24 TCU, so this will really give a good idea about where they're at in the Big 12 pecking order at the outset of the season.
Yeah, so like you said, just very exciting that our first guest is going to be Kenny Dillingham. So we'll have some more information being posted on all of our social media platforms, either tonight or tomorrow. So stay tuned, look out for that. You can get all the information that you need to be able to attend next week's event, which again, we're very excited for. With that being said, we'll get into the actual news. We'll talk about the sports now, which is, I'm sure, what you're all here for. We're actually going to start things off with some ASU hockey. They open their season next Friday against Penn State. The USHO preseason poll came out today. ASU is ranked number 14. And Penn State is ranked number 5. Penn State is obviously considered to be one of the best teams in the NCAA going into this year. We also have Greg Powers, who has agreed to come on our podcast at some point. So, Chris, another really exciting guest ahead of the NCAA hockey season this year.
Super fired up. Our ASU hockey coverage and content has been really well received. A lot of people are asking us for more. So we're going to be leaning in like even heavier on covering hockey, and a preseason ranking of 14 after ASU was a bubble team last year is about what kind of you would expect, right? Hockey's really exciting because if you make the playoff, any team that makes it can win a national championship. ASU has Cullen Potter returning. He was a high-level draft pick and an all-conference, pick. And ASU has a pretty talented roster. They've added a lot of newcomers via the transfer portal. Gabby, you would know even better than me about some of the bigger name additions that they have and how they're going to fit in. And I know that we're going to have a bunch of season preview content and coverage coming up on subsequent podcasts and in written form on Sun Devil Source. What are your thoughts about kind of where this team is at going into the season?
Yeah, it's really interesting. They're only returning 11 players, and the entire landscape of college hockey, kind of as we know it, is really changing. There was a rule passed where CHL is just kind of another development path up in Canada, similar to the NCAA, but no school is involved. It's just a development path, a development league. So CHL players are now able to play in the NCAA. About 60% of this year's draft talent from the 2025 NHL draft came from the CHL, and ASU was actually one of the first, pioneers to really embrace that rule change. Braxton Whitehead is a forward that they have coming in this year. He was one of the first players to make the jump from the CHL to the NCAA, and now something that has just recently kind of, shaken the hockey world is the news that we broke. Noah Beck, he was a standout defenseman for ASU last season. His brother is Jack Beck. He's coming from the AHL to play for ASU. I think he's maybe the third or fourth player to do this. So Greg Powers really rolling with the punches here and just embracing everything as it is.
Yeah, Greg Powers told us that it's an important addition because he's a lefty winger. They really only had a couple of other options in that role, and he expects him to be probably in their top two lines, somewhere in their top six. He's older, right? 21, 22. And I think what you said there about the CHL is really interesting because it seems like that developmental angle is going to be really whittled down there by players deciding to come play and get some revenue share money playing Division I hockey at a high level. We'll probably see similar things happen with minor league baseball. A lot of players who are maybe older but don't see as clear of a path to the highest level, the MLB or NHL, probably going to end up playing in college baseball or hockey, and that might transform some of these rosters. But ASU was able to take advantage of that based upon Noah Beck's relationship and got somebody who appears to be a really talented addition who was a previous NHL draft pick.
Yeah, and there's lots of kind of nitty-gritty rules as to what qualifies them to be eligible to play in the NCAA after, the AHL is considered a professional league. So there's a lot of just finite details. He's ineligible to play in the first 6 games of the season this year for ASU. Just kind of came down to his eligibility status. It's all kind of funky, but like you said, we'll have a full season preview. It'll be a long one. They have 18 newcomers, I believe. It's either 17 or 18 newcomers on their roster this year. They actually have their first open practice and media availability tomorrow, so we'll get some sound from Greg Powers and I'm sure a couple of other players posted to all of our platforms as always tomorrow. But should be a very exciting season for not just ASU hockey, but college hockey as a whole. All right, done with the hockey stuff. Now let's get back into football. Chris, there have been a handful of players out, questionable status. What did Kenny Dillingham have to say this week about the status of some of those guys?
Yeah, that was a big deal for ASU's defense playing without Xavier Alford, Montana Warren. Warren, we don't know if he's going to be back. That wasn't expressly said, but Alford's going to be out. ASU got really good play from Kendrick Breedlove at nickel. That's going to be really important moving forward. A little bit of a shaky start, but then he had the punch out for the first of 3 turnovers for ASU. Kyson Brown played a little bit in that game. Dillingham said that they'll be ramping him up and he should be full go. It'd be interesting to see what happens in the backfield between Raleek Brown, who's been their starter the last couple games after Kyson Brown got hurt against Mississippi State. Kanye Udo is also an option there, right? Big offensive injury or illness has been Jalen Moss, not playing the last couple weeks. Seems like he's still doubtful, according to Dillingham. That matters a lot because they've played so much 12 personnel with 2 tight ends when they haven't had Jalen Moss on the field the last 2 weeks. But then we saw Derek Eusebio show up big in a big moment, as we'll talk about quite a lot later. ASU seems to be getting healthier. There were no new injuries that were discussed. We'll see. The injury report that's now weekly by the Big 12 starting on Wednesday evenings and updated daily until games is going to make things a lot easier for us to track and understand the status of players from doubtful, probable, likely, and available. But the defense, for not having a couple of important players in the secondary against pretty potent passing attack, and the way that they were so limited was fairly impressive. And I think that's a big takeaway from that last game.
Impressive defense for sure this past weekend at Waco. We're going to get into all of the details of everything that went on in that Baylor game. We have a quick word from our sponsor, drinkonthesly.com, and then we have our Sly Moves of the Week. All right, this is the first time we're introducing the Sly Special Teams Move of the Week, an appropriate week as ever, the Jesus Gomez walk-off field goal. Chris, it was just pandemonium on the field after that play. So we're going to show that, and then we'll get into our analysis of the play.
After not exactly mincing his words about ASU's kicking situation for much of last season, Kenny Dillingham has really had nothing but nice things to say about Jesus Gomez all offseason, and we saw it right there, the exact reason why. I mean, this guy, his obsession with perfection is something that I really haven't seen from many players in my life watching football ever. This guy wears a GoPro on his helmet to track his steps. He is legitimately obsessed with every part of his routine in a way that clearly pays off in the big moments. I mean, it says something about his confidence for him to turn to the sideline and raise his arms like Maximus from Gladiator, almost asking Dillingham if he's not entertained before the kick even went through the uprights. I mean, this guy has the smoothest pulse you can possibly ask for and could be a real weapon for ASU when league play starts to really ramp up.
Yeah, I said on our post-game show, it reminded me of like a Steph Curry three-pointer that you turn around because you know it's good before when the ball leaves your hand or your foot in this case. And it was such a weakness last year for ASU. Remember, Kenny Dillingham went off and got a lot of negative national media attention for what happened against Cincinnati when he, put out there he wanted to have students audition to be the team's kicker. That didn't really work out so well, and they knew that they needed to go out and fix that. And it was sort of a, fortuitous thing that the kicker who ushered out Herm Edwards in 2022 against Eastern Michigan, or for Eastern Michigan against ASU. It was Herm Edwards' last game. People remember the video that went viral of Herm Edwards talking to Ray Anderson and Michael Crow on the sidelines. They thought he got fired. He didn't get fired on the sidelines, but that was his last game. And then a couple years later, you fast forward, and he's kicking for ASU, and he has the 9 field goals made on 10 attempts. 57-yarder was his only miss. He was like frustrated about missing a 57-yarder because maybe the operation wasn't perfect. But as you said, he's a perfectionist. He wears that GoPro. He watches a little video after every kick, and he's got some humility about him. He's like, I just take a couple steps, kick the ball. That's all I'm doing. But this has been a huge thing for ASU to be able to get that caliber of kicking. remember last year, offense, defense were firing on all cylinders for much of the year, at least the second half of the year. So special teams was the thing that needed to be overcome. And right now you have a kicker who's helping your offense overcome its struggles of not being able to punch the ball into the end zone when you're in the red zone. Being able to have the longer range field goal kicks when in the past you would have gone for it on fourth down on low percentage sometimes, or maybe you short field punted. You don't have to do those things anymore. And that really changes the dynamic quite a bit in a way that is extremely important given the struggles that ASU's offense has had. We talked all spring and in the summer about how good that he looked. And so not everything actually works out the way that you think it's going to work from watching practices. But in this particular case, Jesus Gomez looks like an All-American caliber kicker who will be probably kicking on Sundays or get that opportunity at least next year. And that is a massive weapon for the Sun Devils.
And that kind of savvy confidence that he carries himself with isn't new. He's had it this entire time that he's been at ASU, a short time, albeit, but he still just walked right in the doors, waltzed right in the doors, and then had that confidence. Kenny Dillingham had kind of a funny story relating to that after the game.
He's so calm and confident. Like when there was a meeting about you're going to be interviewed now and all this stuff like they would do for our entire team, like media training stuff. And they asked him some hard questions, and it was funny. And a DJ leads it, and then they bring in somebody to talk to him. And they put Jesus up there. And I can't remember his response, but, the whole room cheered because he was like, I go out there, I take my steps, and I kick the ball. It was such a calming thing that our whole team cheered, and I was like, all right, this dude, I have a lot of confidence in. I don't even need to watch you kick. I got a lot of confidence that thing's going in.
All right, our Sly offensive move of the week is for a guy who hasn't really seen a lot of action out on the field. I was watching on my screen, and the camera panned over to Derek Eusebio, and I looked, I said, does that say 83? I wasn't expecting to see him on my screen. He had, I believe, 2 receptions, if I'm remembering correctly, and our offensive move of the week is his 61-yard reception from Sam Levitt. And Kenny Dillingham really had glowing reviews about this guy after the game, too. All of his teammates did. So what did you guys see on that play, and what does it mean in kind of a broader context of the team?
Well, you were talking about with Jesus Gomez, Chris, how sometimes things you see in practice you might not see in the game. This is just like Jesus Gomez. Derek Eusebio has been a very strong practice player in his entire time with the Sun Devils, particularly, on the dodgeball field as much as the football field. Yeah. He was basically the team MVP during Camp Tontezona. But he has been a very strong practice player. He has a very adept set of skills in terms of his route tree and his soft hands that even potentially All-American wide receiver Jordan Tyson claims might even be better than his. And so for him to get a shot in this moment shows a level of trust that he has built up coming from a walk-on, surviving kind of the great purge of NCAA rosters, becoming a scholarship player. And now for him to be in this situation, really, especially with Jalen Moss kind of being unsure if he'll be in or out this coming week against TCU, it really opens up the playbook for ASU and allows them to compete a lot more in 11 personnel. Defenses will always try to make the offense one-dimensional. ASU was basically making itself one-dimensional by only running 12 personnel because there wasn't a lot of confidence in whatever third receiver they would throw out there. Now Dillingham and Arroyo and company kind of know they have enough reliability out of Eusebio in the slot in the big moment to potentially switch up their formations and kind of run a more spread out a number of 12, 11 personnel. We've even seen a lot of 13 personnel with the absence of Moss trying to get 3 tight ends on the field. So for Eusebio to break out, obviously this play is just a climactic moment for him after years and years and years of grinding. He had this huge touchdown and his first catch last season. But for him to potentially be a breakout player over these next few weeks with Moss kind of on the fence of availability could be a huge thing for the Sun Devils heading into Big 12 play.
Yeah, I agree. Something that Kenny Dillingham said today was every 4 or 5 games, you need to be changing what you're doing schematically so that the opponents aren't understanding what they're going to be looking at. And Derek Eusebio's emergence in this game is one of the factors that will help ASU diversify what it's doing offensively in a way that may be difficult for TCU or Utah or other opponents to prepare for, right? He's a special story because, as you said, he's a former walk-on. Not a lot of those guys get opportunities. He went out, and first time he got targeted last year, I believe, was in garbage time against Arizona. He had the long run after the catch on a little screen for the touchdown, and Jordan Tyson was getting x-rays on the collarbone that he broke, and then he came out, and he was like just beaming from ear to ear and so excited to see Eusebio, as one of his good friends, get that touchdown. And then there were some iconic photos almost of Eusebio drinking from the Territorial Cup after that game that I remember. And they're such good friends, Tyson and Eusebio, that you could just see the authenticity of how he was talking about him and how excited that he was for Eusebio getting that opportunity in that game. Remember, he's from Texas, maybe the Dallas area, an hour and a half or so. So he probably had family and friends there. ASU had has more Texas originating players on its roster than any ASU team in history. And this was like the perfect representation of that. Jordan Tyson is from there. Derek Eusebio is from there. And a bunch of other guys, Keith Abney, who we're going to be talking about here in a minute, from there. But I think that you guys would agree that anytime that Eusebio's in a 11-on-11 or 7-on-7 in practice, the ball is thrown his way, you think something good's going to happen. And so when he had one earlier catch in the game, when they finally broke out of their 12 personnel, and they're like, hey, let's throw a real slot receiver out there, and he had a catch, I was like, they need to get the ball more to him. And then it was 3rd and 13. Their backs are against the wall. They're down 17-16. It's late in the game. They need some momentum and points. A lot of fans are thinking, oh, gosh, here they go. They're going to lose this game despite being in the red zone several times and having all the turnovers, a 3-turnover advantage. And then there was a cover 2 bust where 2 guys went with Jordan Tyson. They left Eusebio wide open over the middle. Smart decision by Sam Levitt to not overthrow the ball, probably a little bit under, but that gave him plenty of time to go catch the ball. And then they finished it with Jordan Tyson catching a really impressive touchdown. Ho-hum, he does that. He could have easily been our slime move of the week, but we're going to have plenty of Jordan Tyson slime moves of the week. So let's go with Derek Eusebio today, because without that, probably wouldn't have happened. And I agree that now that's transpired, and with Jalen Moss's status uncertain going into this week and beyond, here's another receiver who's stepping up when their transfers that they brought in haven't been able to really do that much to this point.
Yeah, it is really cool just seeing the relationship between Tyson and Eusebio. Tyson had some pretty glowing words to say about his friend after the game. Our former intern Blake Neiman, shout out. He tweeted the clip and he said, get you someone who looks at you the way Jordan Tyson looks at Derek Eusebio. I think that's a perfect caption for what we're about to see. So here's what Jordan Tyson and Kenny Dillingham had to say about Derek Eusebio.
And that's everything, bro. I think he's one of the better receivers on this team, bro, to keep it honest. Like, his ball skills, 1 to 9 on the team, bro. He probably has better ball skills than me, to be honest with y'all. So just seeing him get his shot, bro, and him maximizing it, bro, that means the world to me, bro. And especially, I didn't get to see the other one because I was in the locker room getting the x-ray and stuff. So being on the field right next to him, seeing that one, bro, means the world. Even the other one he had caught in the middle of the field, I was running to get the block just because it's him. So just having him on the field with me, bro, it means a lot, bro. He works his tail off, bro. He doesn't quit, bro. Doesn't complain when he doesn't get the ball or is not playing because we're in a lot of 12 personnel sets, man. Man, he deserves it all. I can't cap.
You can trust him. I mean, we gotta. You can trust he's gonna be where he's gonna be. He's versatile. You saw him. We handed him the ball a couple times there. He can kind of do it all. So we gotta get him in the game more, because at the end of the day, when he was in, he was productive, and people that are productive need to play. And we put him on scholarship last year because he deserved it, and I think he's only going to climb in this program.
All right, our final slide defensive move of the week, Keith Abney's interception. This is one of just 3 turnovers that ASU generated. They won that turnover margin 3-0. So here's a look at that play.
I mean, head coach Kenny Dillingham had plenty of positive words to say about Keith Abney, but Abney's interception was really the encapsulation of what I felt was one of the best games I've seen from Arizona State's secondary this season, and even dating back to last season when they had legit veteran leaders at every single spot. To not have Xavier Alford, for Boogie Wilson to step up the way he did, and for Keith Abney to respond to a couple early pass interference penalties, one on him, one on Javen Robinson. Dillingham talked about it in the press conference today. Those guys hate giving up penalties like that. They're competitive, just like Dillingham likes. They were going to respond in any way they possibly could, and sure enough, that was a really impressive pick. Not only was it a tough catch to make, he was blanketed on Josh Coleman, who was one of the best receivers in the country.
Right.
And Abney just was in the right spot. Robertson missed the throw inside, and that wouldn't be an interception if Abney wasn't covering Cameron as well as he did. Abney hauls it in, and that's just a huge play and really a nice cherry on top for a game that ASU's defense really kept it in for the longest time. You wouldn't have expected that, perhaps. We all made our predictions. Maybe perhaps wouldn't have expected that going into the contest because of how high profile and high functioning that Baylor offense really was. But the pass rush did a good job kind of knocking Robertson off his spot for much of the game, and the secondary picked up the scraps, as we saw with that interception.
Yeah, the score was not that far off from what I expected, and I thought it would be a close game. But the manner in which ASU played defensively was a little bit different than I anticipated. This is a cover 3 base match style defense. What they did in this game in the first half is they played a lot more man coverage, where they didn't want to allow Sawyer Robertson to get these clean, comfortable pictures where he was able to hit quick game throws on the perimeter to his wide receivers. And so what they did was when Keith Abney and Javen Robinson are playing a lot more at the line of scrimmage and some of those press coverages, it makes it a little bit more difficult for Robinson to know what's coming. And I agree, the aggressiveness of some of those penalties that were borderline at best is something you don't want to take away from your corners. You want to rein them in, not have to coax more aggression out of them, especially when you're going up against a 225-pound receiver that you're overmatched by from a physical standpoint. He fumbled twice, so ASU did a really good job of punching the ball out. Kendrick Breedlove probably had his best game. Very first completion of the game, he gave something up by sort of guessing, I think, that it was going to be a pass into the flat, and it went into the slot. But then he had the punch out. Then later on, Boogie Wilson was involved in the punch out where got his helmet in there on the ball. And then by the time that Keith Abney made his interception, ASU had gone back to a little bit more zone. But by that point, Robertson had been conditioned to be thinking man. And so Keith Abney, his eyes are in the backfield, and he read that, broke on it, dive, great play. He's playing at an all-conference level. We said going into this season that Keith Abney looked to have elevated his play quite a lot. He's bigger, stronger, more settled in, has always had really good technique, fundamentals, one of the smarter guys on the team, Barrett Honors College. But Javen Robinson had a very good performance. Baylor's wide receivers were not able to get on top of ASU's coverage whatsoever. Yeah, they gave up some of those balls in the slot or over the middle. That's going to happen against a team of the caliber of Baylor. But I agree, this was a really great secondary performance, especially when you consider that 2 of their top 5 or 6 most important players in the secondary didn't even play. That's something they're going to be able to build upon, especially with not being able to have Alford again this week, and we'll find out about Montana Warren. And then the turnover battle in particular, winning that 3-0, ASU probably loses the game without that third turnover, or, at least would have likely probably lost. And this was the stat that ASU won in the regular season last year in the Big 12, first in turnover margin. It's the most predictive stat in football. I tweeted earlier today, or I posted on X, that Arizona is 3-0, tied for first in turnover margin. Houston, 3-0, tied for first in turnover margin. BYU tied for 8th, 3-0. And UCF tied for 8th and 3-0. Texas Tech is 4-0, tied for 20th. So a lot of people are wondering, okay, why is Arizona or Houston doing so well this start of the season? Because they're averaging 2 + 2 turnovers per game over their opponents. That's a number one factor. And as the season continues to unfold, what we're going to see is whoever is able to maintain that status at the top of the turnover margin in a conference where there's going to be a lot of one-score games, as ASU won most of them last year, the most in school history. In fact, that's going to be the difference. Brian Ward, ASU's defensive coordinator, has always had a 30 takeaway goal in each season. And when you have 3 turnover performances, that gets you a long way toward being able to accomplish that or come close to it.
ASU is also now 12-0 when leading in turnover margin or winning the turnover margin under Kenny Dillingham. Another great performance by that ASU defense this week as well. On the other side of the ball, things weren't as consistent. Things weren't as strong. Kenny Dillingham talked about that today in his press conference as well, said there were just some, offensive struggles. You tweeted out Baylor is essentially gifting this game to ASU. All they have to do is unwrap it. There were a few times in the red zone where ASU couldn't convert and score a touchdown, and he touched on that today as well as Sam Levitt.
Yeah, and it really felt like for much of the contest, Arizona State, particularly on offense, was kind of overthinking it. They went into this contest understanding that Baylor was not only weaker on the defensive side already, they were banged up. Defensive lineman Cooper Lance wasn't playing. And I think we saw that in the run game with Rayleigh Brown, who was very, very patient with his runs. Overly patient in a way where he was kind of waiting for the right gap to open up. But even when the gap opened up, he wouldn't hit it. He kind of would just have his hand on the back of the the offensive lineman in front of him and would just kind of follow, and then stumble forward. He did, in my opinion, a poor job of cutting upfield instead trying to hit the edge on every single play. Levitt was similarly in terms of how I felt he was kind of not exactly seeing what the defense was giving him and trying to put his own picture into his head of what was on the field. You tweeted about it. You and I talked about it at halftime. There's a play where Malik McClain drew a pass interference in the corner of the end zone where McClain might have had a step on his defender. Jordan Tyson was wide open on the backside, and Levitt just didn't see it. It felt like for a lot of the first 3.5 quarters, Levitt was taking the snap, dropping back, and not turning his head. He was locking right in on the receiver he was looking for and just would stare and then try to force a ball in. He almost threw an interception in the red zone in the first quarter. He was lucky that was dropped. And well, yes, Dillingham has every right to be very proud of how Levitt did not turn the ball over for this one and was able to really gut up in the end of the game and pull out a huge road win. There are certainly not zero causes for concern after, again, kind of an inconsistent performance from a unit that you and I both thought would be very strong heading into this season.
Yeah, I agree with most of what you said. Dillingham, we asked him about this today. He said there's a few little things that are happening on some of these plays that are kind of all different. They've had too many offensive penalties, like 5 or 6 in the first half. Malik McClain had a holding on a really important play that would have been a conversion. You had on one, the shot play that the ball was knocked out of Jordan Tyson's hands down the field. He was open for a long time, but what happened was Kyle Scott gave up an immediate pressure. Levitt had to kind of circle around, and by the time he circled around, because he couldn't get rid of the ball earlier, that coverage had kind of closed up a little bit, and he had to make a 65-yard throw to get the ball down to Jordan Tyson. That's probably a touchdown if that protection sets up, right? So there's little things kind of here and there that are happening that are just preventing them from being able to hit on some of these explosives. Then, of course, it is also true McClain was down the field, a penalty. There was Jaron Hamilton basically got tackled down the field. That could have been a home run shot play that they had. And there have been a few of those earlier this season, coupled with overthrows to Malik McClain at the outset of Mississippi State and not seeing some opportunities. Sam Levitt tried to throw a ball down the field to Hamilton, another one where he had Malik McClain open on a little in-breaking route that should have been a first down. Instead, ASU ended up punting after a much lower percentage throw. And so you have to know the time, situation, down distance, and be able to take the conversion that's easy. But we're also nitpicking a little bit a performance where Sam Levitt was nearly 70%, didn't have an interception, scrambled effectively, ran for a lot of yards on the road. Not easy to accomplish. It's just that I think that we agree, and ASU fans more broadly agree, that the expectation bar is very high for Sam Levitt because he was forecast to be a first-round NFL draft pick, a Heisman Trophy candidate, all these accolades that are made about him, especially with Cam Scadaboo's departure. And so you got to go out there and put that on display at the outset of the season in a way that resonates with everybody. Oh, yeah, that's what we expected. Certainly by no stretch is it all or even maybe majority on him, but he can play better, and he's going to have to play better for the Sun Devils to be able to repeat as Big 12 champions.
certainly a lot of pressure on him heading into this season, but I would hope I would guess to assume that a lot of ASU fans kind of worries and stress they had after those first 2 games, especially of the season, were alleviated.
A little bit, yeah.
Just after that Big 12 opener. They're 1-0 in conference play now, the opposite of what they were last year after that Texas Tech game. Started off 0-1 in the inaugural year. But that just about does it for our Baylor analysis and our Baylor recap. We have a quick word from our presenting sponsor, Jones Auto Centers, and then we will take a first look at Texas Christian this Friday.
For over 60 years, the Glenn Jones name has been recognized for integrity and honesty.
And the Jones Auto Centers in Wickenburg.
Jones Ford Verde Valley.
Take a nice country drive out the Buckeyes.
When you're talking about Arizona's best, you're talking about the Jones Auto Group. It's quick, fast, strong.
I want to invite you to visit our new facility in Casa Grande and enjoy our country-style way of doing business. We're the Joneses.
Welcome back to the Sun Devil Source podcast, live from RAC Scottsdale, presented by Jones Auto Centers. Gabby Chernoff, Chris Cartman, and Luke Lendler here with you today. Luke, you've done all the research, all the big research on TCU for this upcoming Friday. A short week for ASU. They're going from playing on Saturday to Friday. What have you seen just big picture from the offense of TCU?
Well, I think it's pretty funny that ASU gets Baylor and then TCU in back-to-back weeks. When I was leaving the stadium on Saturday, some Baylor fans were talking back and forth with me, and they were basically saying, it's okay that Arizona State beat Baylor today as long as you go knock the socks off of TCU next week. I mean, those two teams do not like each other one bit, but they're not too dissimilar, especially on offense. They profile very similarly to each other. TCU, kind of a hybrid air raid scheme, not as classic air raidy as Baylor. There's a lot of Mike Leach influence in the Baylor offense. TCU a little bit more modernized. But Josh Hoover is kind of the name to watch. Kenny Dillingham talked about him at his press conference today. He's thrown for 1,000 yards so far this season. He has 11 touchdowns, just 2 picks, and he completes 68% of his passes. Watching him on film, I was eerily reminded of another quarterback that wears number 10, Sam Levitt. He's just kind of a smaller, slightly stockier version of what I think Sam Levitt has put on film a lot so far this season. He has an 86.5 PFF grade when TCU runs play action, which they do at one of the lower clips in the Big 12, but because they run it at such a low clip, it's highly effective when it hits. That's where they get a lot of their shot plays out of. And their shot plays are only ever looking at 2 guys. Senior Eric McAllister is this big body Quentin Johnson type, a receiver who went there a couple years ago. Maybe not as fast as Johnson, but bigger, physical guy, good blocker on the outside, your prototypical X receiver. But a weapon I certainly have my eyes on it as to how ASU might contain him is Jordan Dwyer. He was second team all Big Sky last year for Idaho, coming from the Vandals and the Kibbe Dome up there in Idaho, coming down to Fort Worth and now playing for the Horned Frogs. He is smaller, but very shifty in tight spaces. They move him all around the formation in the slot. They sometimes have him in the backfield. He doesn't have a rushing attempt so far this season, but they like to motion him around out there. They try to do basically whatever they can to get him matched up with a linebacker. So if ASU's linebackers are ever forced into coverage on him, it's going to be a big test to see how can they move laterally as athletes. I mean, Dwyer is very quick, not only in tight spaces, in open spaces too. He went over a century in their first 2 games, particularly against UNC down there in Chapel Hill when TCU pulled off this blowout win and what was supposed to be kind of Bill Belichick's grandiose welcome to college football. TCU walked in there and took the chain right off his neck and had a dominant display on offense and defense. A big win that has put them at 3-0. It was the first win of their 3 so far this season, and Dwyer was a real part of that offensive explosion. I'm intrigued to see how Brian Ward can scheme up ways to contain him. You mentioned that they were playing more man coverage against Baylor receivers as to kind of throw Robertson off. Hoover is more of a creator outside the pocket. Dillingham talked about that today. So man coverage might not be the best idea because then you're going to have a spy on him. It's going to be an interesting matchup, and I'm intrigued to see what the coaches say over the course of the week for how they're going to contain an offense that has gone into double-digit victories in all 3 of their games so far.
Really, really good synopsis. I feel like Dwyer is an important player in this game because ASU's slot softness in coverage has been a little bit of an issue, and that was targeted by Robertson quite extensively, trying to get the ball there against Breedlove, even though Breedlove had one of his better performances with Montana Warren not playing. And then I think Hoover's play extension ability and overall athleticism is a notch better than we've seen in ASU's opponents this year, whether that's Blake Shapen or Sawyer Robertson. And that's what Dillingham alluded to when you asked the question that you asked him today about, how similar that they might be. And with Hoover, you're right. If you're playing man coverage and you got guys that are turning and running with receivers, Hoover could beat you for scrambles. And that's a difficult thing that ASU really hasn't had to deal with to this point in the season. Usually when you go up against that first scrambler, that's where you'd kind of realize, okay, like this could be a problem for us. So they're going to have to figure that out in practice this week. I'm assuming that you might have a spy, Jordan Crook or Keyshawn Elliott. When you play that 4-2-5, though, it's difficult to do that and make sure that you're accounting for all the interior gaps and the way that you can try to execute in the passing game. So that's going to be very curious. I feel like in that game, ASU's not just overall, but ASU got really good play from guys who maybe weren't well versed in the roles that they were asked to service, like a Boogie Wilson. So I feel like the corners are going to be reliable. I don't think ASU fans need to be too worried about them. Of course, ASU is going to try to get TCU is going to try to get boundary safety, conflict, Miles Rouser. That's something you kind of have to be aware of. He did a good job in that game against Baylor. And then Kendrick Breedlove. I would continue to watch those two guys against that shifty slot capability, the underneath leverage routes, and then that play extension and the read option capability of Hoover. I'm almost surprised that they don't do more RPOs than they do, given what that capability is. And, of course, you can't give up the shot plays. ASU didn't against Baylor. That was one of the main factors in their ability to keep that a lower scoring game and to emerge victorious.
And it's also worth noting that against SMU, Dwyer was somewhat held in check by bigger, more physical nickelbacks. So that's why Montana Warren's availability this week could be a big factor in this matchup. Kendrick Breedlove, like you just mentioned, great performance against Baylor, but he's exactly the kind of guy that Dwyer has eaten for lunch in these first two games so far of the season, and exactly the kind of guy that he wasn't matched up against in week 3 when he only went for 34 yards against the Ponies. So I'm very intrigued to see if Warren can play and how he might be utilized.
It's kind of how you deploy that guy, because Breedlove, he's playing off coverage at nickel. If you have a good quarterback, you're going to be able to hit those quick routes. So it's not like it was necessarily something that Breedlove wasn't doing that well. It's just he was asked to be in that type of a role. But against a team like TCU, you may need to bring that nickel into more man conflict situations, but that's more risk tolerant, and then you could give up some vertical slot type stuff, and so you got to be very careful.
Yeah, and this is a team that ASU has yet to face in Big 12 play. They didn't play TCU last year, Chris. I don't know if you remember the last time, if they have played them at all in recent history.
I don't remember them the last time that they played TCU, no.
Well, another Texas team, they have a full slate. I think they have 5 of 6 games in a row that they're playing are against Texas teams. I heard you guys went to hit some 3 a.m. Whataburger down in Waco.
Yeah.
Texas staple, but no more road trips down there for ASU this year. But this TCU defense, Luke, what have you seen?
So they're a hybrid. ASU goes from one funky scheme and whatever Dave Aranda likes to throw at other quarterbacks. Yep. I feel like that can only be described as the kitchen sink, is what he throws at other teams against a slightly more foundational scheme, but still one that flips back and forth. It's kind of a hybrid between a 3-3-5 and a 4-2-5.
Right.
The most consistent aspect of their defense is they love to have 5 DBs on the field. They want to play fast. They want to fly to the ball. They have yet to lose the turnover battle in any of their games so far this season. They haven't been as spectacular as those teams that you've mentioned earlier on, but they've forced a couple fumbles. They've intercepted a couple of passes. That's mostly on the offense kind of taking care of the ball. But yet, at the end of the day, I was looking through every member of this defense, all their PFF grades, watching some film, and it's just, for the most part, a relatively unspectacular unit that kind of just holds the ground, bends, and doesn't break a lot. Will give up, 20 kind of points in the high 20s, but is more of a complementary piece to an offense that really drives the car, this TCU squad.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to be as challenging of a defense for Sam Leavitt and Marcus Arroyo to decipher about how to actually attack it. Given what you said, it's more predictable and easier to kind of figure out based upon Mississippi State, you didn't know what they were going to be early on in the season. And Baylor, with all of their simulated pressures and disguises, that was difficult. This should be easier. Now, that doesn't mean that you should be pass first if you're ASU. What you've learned to this point in the season is you got to be able to try to establish the run. They didn't have as good a run blocking, and Raleek Brown wasn't as strong at deciphering where he needed to go with the ball. So they got to kind of address that. I think getting Kyson Brown healthier gives them another option that will probably help them. And what they've done is they've layered in a lot of Sam Levitt first level read option type plays where we didn't see midline Sam Levitt keepers on read options last season or in the first couple games, but they ran that successfully against Baylor. And they had a little sprint option, and they had some quarterback power into the boundary. That one of those plays failed in the red zone. But I like that look for them. I think that's a positive thing because Sam Levitt is so dynamic from a mobility standpoint, and that does make it easier for you to get defenders sucking up a little bit. TCU is good at not giving up the shot plays, so that might not be as available in this game as it was against Baylor or Mississippi State or other opponents. I think this is a game where Sam Levitt's going to have to take the quick hitters. Mm-hmm. You got to just get the hitch routes, the slips to your tight ends, the screen releases, and little dink and duck your way. Try to have possession of the football. You don't want to get into the high-scoring shootouts, I don't think. If you can do those things, coupled with not turning the ball over, Raleek Brown ball security, Sam Levitt, dangerous throw, as you said, in the first quarter. They were lucky that wasn't intercepted. You got a field goal out of it. Mattered a lot. Turnover margin, probably a close game. Run the rock, and Sam Levitt, take what's there. That's a good recipe for them.
We did get an answer to my question to you. TCU and ASU last played in 1975, so 50 years ago. That's out.
Why I didn't remember it, Gabby.
No, well, Joe Whitener, shout out. Thanks, you for
Joe.
Getting this information. Not so fast. He said Chris should remember.
Oh, 1975. Oh, sorry.
You were what, like 2?
I was born in 1975. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Gramps, whatever you say.
All right. So, yeah, but thanks, Joe.
Yeah, Joe's got jokes. Don't be surprised if your membership gets revoked here in the coming hours.
I probably should know that, but there's a lot to unpack every week after ASU plays a team. And just so people understand, like the peek behind the curtain, I do just enough to be able to come here and do this. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, really deep dive. I'll watch their most recent games, every play. And then when we talk on Thursday, we'll be able to have a much more extensive X's and O's breakdown. Doing the podcast on Monday afternoon after coming back from a road trip is a very demanding thing. But I'll take it, Joe. You can hit me on that one, and people can get me on the board. And
come on, Chris. You're supposed to be the encyclopedia for all things ASU football. Why didn't you know that? Come on.
If people are watching, I got a trivia question for you out there at home. We'll see if somebody will respond.
Yeah.
Completely random. Who is the last player? Who were the last 2 players to have at least 1 sack and another tackle for loss and score a touchdown for ASU? Who were the last 2 to do it? Somebody asked me this.
Love this question.
Parker Jones. That's why it popped into my head. Parker Jones, Jones Auto Centers. He called me one time randomly. We're talking about something else, and then he asked me this trivia question. It took me 5 to 10 minutes, but I got both of them correct. Maybe that's why I brought it up. But nevertheless, we have Will Boers here, one of our former Sun Devil Source interns. He may or may not have been around a little bit before this happened by 1 or 2 of the players. So he's been following ASU since then until now. So when we're done here, I'm going to go ask Will Boer and see if he can figure that out. But I appreciate Will coming out. Wish we had more Son of a Source alum who showed out. Maybe next week when we have Kenny Dillingham on the podcast.
We should ask him that question. Yeah.
He's a Valley guy.
There's a reason why he should know the answer to that too, because he was a graduate assistant on the team that had one or both of these players.
You're giving out hints now. This is bad.
Well, okay.
I don't think you do very well on If you want to be a millionaire,
now people are going to get
you're
it.
letting people phone friends.
I'm
You're letting
the
them use
phone
their
a friend.
lifelines. You're letting them use your lifelines.
I'm not phone a friend for you, but hopefully you already thought about it.
Okay, we're gonna give the viewers a second to think about that. We do have a question in the comments just about the game. Figured why not answer it? Give the people a little bit of time to think about your trivia question. How big was Baylor losing one of their starting linebackers on ASU's first drive?
Yeah, I mean that was not insignificant. They already had one of their top 3 or 4 linebackers didn't play in the game coming in, so that's a factor. I don't think that really probably determined the outcome of the game. And let's keep in mind, they already had lost one of their top 2 running backs before the season, Pendergast, and ASU had a bunch of injuries. Injuries probably were a wash at the end of the day. Can't say it was insignificant, though.
We haven't gotten any responses to the trivia question. Come on, guys. Anyways.
We're going to let it linger, actually.
We'll let it linger.
We'll answer in the next one.
We'll check on it in the next one.
Yeah.
Special shout out to whoever, whether you're watching this live or after we're done wrapping things up here and you're watching it on tape. Shout out in the next episode to whoever gets the answer to that trivia question. But also next week, as we said, Kenny Dillingham will be on the podcast. As I said at the top of our episode, be sure to stay tuned on all of our social media platforms. We'll have everything, all the information that you need to know. I think you said 50 plus members from the sanctuary have already RSVP'd.
I think we have over 60 now, and we're going to open it up to non-sanctuary people, obviously now that we've announced it here on the podcast. So please come out to RAC Scottsdale, 5:30 to 7:30. We're going to have some prizes. We're going to have Kenny Dillingham autographed print of a Camp Tonazona, painting or artwork by Christopher Roach at ChristopherRoche.com. And we're going to have other sort of goodies and things that people are going to be able to hang out with us. And as I said, get a photo with Kenny Dillingham, and it'll be a good time. We'll have name tags. People can put their names of their what they go by in the sanctuary on there, and be a lot of people. Weather should be nicer. Maybe we'll open up the doors. Got an outdoor area here. It should be a fun time.
Yeah, it's dark in here. We haven't gotten to open up the outside doors yet. So that
better weather's coming.
We do also, if you want, of course, refreshments. It's a pool bar, of course. Some Sly cocktails with our other alcohol sponsors as well. Instead of a vodka Red Bull, you can get a Devil's Vodka and Sly Berry Boost or Sly Tropical Boost. Those are Sly's 2 energy drinks that they make, and then they have a couple with their chill beverages as well. Those come in mango and citrus flavors. We don't want anybody falling asleep though, so we're gonna skip over the Dream-based drinks. I just tried the vanilla one last night. Actually, my sleep schedule got kind of like thrown off last week, and then I needed to be up early today, so I was like, let me see if this really helps me. It made me tired a little bit quicker than I needed to before I got everything done.
That Dream hit quick. That's my favorite of the Sly beverage products.
I like the berry boost. I think is my favorite one, but I haven't tried the mango one. I haven't tried, and I haven't tried the new Dreamsicle one, I think.
And we'll get some El Bandito Yankee tequila samplers for people who come through as well. So, it'll be a good time.
We should have like a poll. You know, there's like tequila and vodka people. We should have like a poll with tequila and vodka and see if where our audience
can do a ovation, raise a hand, something.
Drink responsibly though, especially if you're driving here and back in a vehicle from Jones Auto Centers.
Yeah, don't make that mistake.
We do want to thank all of our sponsors, Jones Auto Centers, of course, Drink on the Sly, El Bandito Yankee Tequila, Devil's Liquor, and Devil's Vodka. None of this would be possible without you. We, of course, hope to see a lot of you at our meet and greet, I guess, and just event that we're having here with Kenny Dillingham next week. That should be a really exciting and a big step for our podcast as well. We're very excited. I keep saying that. I sound like a broken record, but we really are. We thank you for watching. As always, ASU takes on TCU this Friday at Mountain America Stadium. We'll have all the analysis for you and coverage this week. Until next week, Gabby Chernoff, Chris Cartman, and Luke Lundler for Sun Devil Source.